thought I was finally coming home to peace. 3 months away, after the ugliest divorce Colorado had ever seen, had left me drained, physically, emotionally, financially. I'd been sleeping in a small rented room in Denver, trying to keep my head above water after lawyers and court fees ate everything I'd worked for. But now, finally, I was driving up the winding mountain road to Pine Ridge, my cabin tucked between the pines and cliffs. That cabin wasn't just wood and stone. It was the one thing the divorce hadn't taken from me, my safe place. The late afternoon sun spilled across the valley as I rounded the last curve. I could already picture it, stepping onto my porch, unlocking the door, breathing in that mix of pine wood and old books that made the cabin feel like mine. I imagined sitting on the porch with coffee, listening to the creek below, thinking, maybe life isn't over yet. But peace wasn't waiting for me. Instead, an unfamiliar black SUV sat parked in my gravel driveway, polished like it belonged in some corporate parking lot downtown. And leaning against it was a woman I had never seen before. Tall, dark blazer, folder in her hand. Her heels crunched on my gravel as she straightened up. She looked more like a lawyer than a neighbor. "Mr. Harris?" she asked, voice smooth, practiced. I stopped, dead in my tracks. "Yeah. Who are you?" She smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Amanda Ruiz, Summit Valley Management. I handle compliance for your community." "My community?" I echoed. "Lady, this is a mountain cabin. I don't live in some subdivision." Amanda ignored the edge in my voice and walked right up, handing me the folder. "We've documented several serious violations during your absence. You'll need to resolve them immediately." I stared down at the papers. Pages and pages of violations. Grass overgrown, wood piles stacked incorrectly, exterior paint weathered, debris on property. Some were dated weeks I wasn't even here. I flipped to the last page. My heart nearly stopped. Balance due, $2,730. Payable within 72 hours. I laughed, nervously, but I laughed. This has got to be some kind of joke. Amanda didn't laugh. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "I assure you, Mr. Harris, it's no joke. Failure to comply may result in legal action, up to and including foreclosure." My jaw dropped. "Foreclosure? For a chipped paint job?" She leaned in closer, lowering her voice like she was confiding in me. "You'd be surprised how quickly small violations add up. The rules are clear, and the clock is already ticking." I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. I'd just driven hours to finally breathe again, and here she was, talking about taking my cabin away. "Look," I said, trying to steady my voice, "I've had a rough few months. Divorce, job loss. I don't have this kind of money lying around. Isn't there some, payment plan?" Her expression didn't change. If anything, it hardened. "Company policy doesn't accommodate personal hardship, Mr. Harris. Violations compound daily. And from what I see here, you're a high-risk homeowner." "High risk?" I snapped. "How the hell would you know that?" Amanda's lips curled in that cold smile again. "We run thorough background checks. We're aware of your recent divorce, the drop in your credit score, even the change in your employment. All indicators you may fail to comply." I froze. My throat got dry. How did she know all that? I said through clenched teeth, "That's private information." "Standard due diligence," she replied, like she was reading off a script. Then she shut the folder and held it against her chest. You have 72 hours. Don't make this harder on yourself." With that, she turned, clicked her heels across my gravel, and slid into her shiny SUV. The engine purred to life, and she drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and the echo of her words ringing in my ears. 72 hours, or foreclosure. I stood in my own driveway, folder heavy in my hands, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel relief at being home. I felt hunted. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I made coffee, sat on my porch, listened to the crickets and the wind moving through the pines. Normally, that sound would calm me, but not now. Not after Amanda's visit. Her words kept replaying in my head like a broken record. High-risk homeowner. 72 hours. Foreclosure. How could a complete stranger know so much about me? My divorce? My job loss? My credit score? Things I hadn't even told my closest friends. What kind of property company digs that deep? By morning, my nerves were shot. I'd barely eaten, and I was pacing my cabin like a caged animal. That's when I heard the sound. A car engine. I peeked through the blinds, and sure enough, a black sedan was parked across the road. Windows tinted. No one got out. They just sat there, watching. My stomach turned cold. I went outside, pretending to grab some firewood, but my eyes kept flicking toward that sedan. The driver didn't move, didn't even roll the window down, just sat there, staring. Or maybe recording? I knew then. I wasn't just dealing with a nosy neighbor. This was surveillance. Around noon, Amanda came back. This time she wasn't alone. A man in a gray suit stepped out of the SUV with her, carrying a leather briefcase. His hair was slicked back, his shoes shiny, the type who'd never once stepped on dirt unless it was on the way to court. "Mr. Harris," Amanda called out as they walked up, "this is Mr. Dalton, our regional supervisor." Dalton didn't smile. He just opened his briefcase, pulled out some documents, and said flatly, "You're already past due. Fees have compounded. Current balance, $3,150. I felt my chest tighten. "Past due? It's been 1 day." Dalton adjusted his tie, unbothered. "Our enforcement protocols operate on daily rates. You're in Phase 2 now." "Phase 2?" I asked, my voice shaking between anger and disbelief. "What the hell are you talking about?" Amanda answered like she was reading a manual. "Phase 1 is warnings and fees. Phase 2 involves county partners, zoning, code enforcement, health inspection. If you fail to comply during Phase 2, Phase 3 escalates to legal remediation." "Legal remediation?" I repeated. "That sounds like foreclosure." Dalton snapped the briefcase shut. "It is foreclosure." I clenched my fists. "This is insane. I've done nothing wrong." Amanda's tone softened, but not in a kind way, in a predator's way. "Mr. Harris, we're not the enemy. We're just ensuring the community maintains its standards." "Standards?" I barked. "I live in a damn cabin in the woods, not a gated neighborhood." Dalton closed his briefcase again, signaling the end of the conversation. 71 hours left. I suggest you make the right choice." They walked back to the SUV as calmly as if they'd just delivered mail. Gravel crunched under their tires as they left. But the sedan? It stayed, watching. That's when I realized this wasn't just harassment. This was a system. They had rules, phases, a playbook. And somehow I'd been dropped right into the middle of it. That evening, the nightmare grew. First, a knock on my door, loud, official. I opened it to find a man in a county jacket holding a clipboard. "Water inspection," he announced. "Got a complaint about contamination." "Contamination?" I repeated. "My well water's been clean for 20 years. Still need to test." He pushed past me before I could argue. He took samples, wrote something on his clipboard, and left me with a slip that said, "Further testing required, homeowner expense." An hour later, another knock. This time, a woman from zoning. She handed me papers claiming my cabin wasn't zoned for full-time residency. I laughed in her face. "Lady, I've lived here for 10 years." She shrugged. "Not according to our records. You'll need to file new permits and pay review fees. Otherwise, you'll be cited." I slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. By nightfall, I had 3 different violation notices pinned to my door. Each one came with fines. Each one carried Summit Valley's logo at the bottom. And that car across the street? Still there. Engine idling. I sat at my kitchen table, head in my hands, surrounded by papers. This was more than bureaucracy. This was war. A coordinated campaign to drown me in fines, strip me of my sanity, and push me off my land. And the worst part? I didn't know who to fight. Amanda? Dalton? The people in the car? Or some faceless boardroom pulling the strings? All I knew was that I had 71 hours to figure it out. By the 3rd day, I was running on fumes. Every time I thought I could breathe, another letter, another fine, another stranger with a clipboard came knocking on my door. Health inspection, code enforcement, zoning violations. Each one carried that cursed logo, Summit Valley Management. I started jumping at every sound, the slam of a car door, the crunch of tires on gravel. Even the creak by my cabin, which usually sounded like music, now felt like it was whispering, "They're coming for you." But that morning, something different happened. A knock. Softer. Familiar. When I opened the door, there stood Lydia, my neighbor. She was in her 60s, hair tied back, sharp eyes that saw too much. She'd worked 25 years as a county detective before retiring up here to the mountains. Everyone in Pine Ridge respected her, and for good reason. Lydia didn't miss a thing. She held up 2 cups of coffee. "You look like hell," she said, pushing past me. I let out a bitter laugh. "Thanks, I feel worse." We sat at my kitchen table, papers spread out like a crime scene. Lydia skimmed through them, her brow furrowing deeper with each page. "This isn't normal. These violations, they're too coordinated. And half of them, I know for a fact this cabin was approved years ago." "So what is it then?" I asked. "What do they want?" Lydia leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "Your land." I blinked. "My land?" She nodded. "Summit Valley isn't some HOA group of volunteers. They're a corporate operation. They target properties, especially ones owned by people who are vulnerable, divorced, in debt, living alone, people they think they can pressure until they sell cheap." Her words hit me like a hammer. "So, I've been marked?" "Exactly," Lydia said. "This isn't personal, Jack. It's business. Cold, ruthless business. They'll bury you under paperwork until you give up." "Seen it before." I rubbed my temples. "Great, so what am I supposed to do? I don't have money for lawyers. I can't even afford the damn violations." Lydia tapped the table with one finger. "First, you stop panicking. Second, you gather evidence. Every notice, every visit, every recording. Don't throw anything away. If they want a war, you give them a paper trail." Her calmness steadied me. For the first time in days, I didn't feel completely alone. But Lydia wasn't finished. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "And there's something else. I've been watching them too." "What do you mean?" I asked. She nodded towards the road. "That black sedan across from your cabin? You're not paranoid. It's surveillance. Summit Valley uses subcontractors, private investigators, ex-security guys. They sit there, log your movements, record who comes and goes, All of it goes into a report. My skin crawled. So I've been under watch this whole time? Yep, Lydia said matter-of-factly. They want you scared, because scared people make mistakes. I leaned back, trying to process. This feels less like property management and more like a mafia. Corporate mafia, Lydia corrected. And Amanda Ruiz, she's just the front. The real power's higher up. There's a regional director pulling strings, someone with deep pockets and government friends. Her words echoed in my head. Government friends. Wait, I said slowly. Those inspectors that came by yesterday, the water guy, zoning lady, they didn't even blink. It was like they were working for Summit Valley, not the county. Lydia gave a dark smile. Bingo. They've got people in county offices. Greased palms, backroom deals. That's why it feels airtight. You're not just fighting a company, you're fighting the system they've built. The weight of it all hit me hard. My cabin suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I whispered, "So what do I do?" Lydia's eyes softened just a little. You fight smarter than they expect, and you don't do it alone. That night, Lydia came back with a battered laptop. We sat side by side at my kitchen table, papers spread everywhere, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She pulled up records, Summit Valley's filings, property acquisitions, court cases, and what I saw made my stomach turn. Case after case of violations leading to foreclosure, families losing homes, retirees pushed out. Every time Summit Valley ended up with the property. They've been doing this for years, Lydia said quietly, and no one stopped them. I clenched my jaw. Then maybe it's time someone did. But Lydia wasn't finished. She scrolled, eyes narrowing. Then she froze. "Jack," she whispered, pointing at the screen, "you're not going to like this." I leaned closer, and my blood went cold. There, in the records, was a name I knew all too well. Patricia, my ex-wife, listed under consultation participant for Summit Valley's Divorce Asset Program. I felt my stomach drop like I was falling. No way! But it was true. My ex-wife had talked to them, maybe even given them information, and suddenly it all made sense. How they knew about my divorce, my finances, my weaknesses. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It was betrayal. I stared at the laptop screen like it might bite me. My ex-wife's name, Patricia Harris, was right there in black and white. Consultation Participant Divorce Asset Program. My throat went dry. My hands trembled on the table. No, this has to be a mistake. Lydia shook her head. It's not a mistake, Jack. Summit Valley has entire programs designed for divorces. They track filings, reach out to one spouse, and consult on property value. Usually they promise extra cash or management help. What they're really doing is fishing for information. I felt my chest tightening, anger boiling in my gut. You mean Patricia gave them information about me? About my cabin? Lydia didn't answer. She didn't need to. The realization hit me harder than any court battle, harder than Amanda's threats. My ex-wife, the woman I'd once built a life with, had basically handed them the keys to ruin me. That night I couldn't sit still. I paced the cabin, muttering to myself, fists clenching, unclenching. Why would she do this? Wasn't it enough she'd drained me dry in court? Now she wanted the cabin too? Finally, around midnight, I grabbed my phone. My thumb hovered over her number. For months, I'd sworn I'd never call her again, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. The phone rang. Once, twice. Then her voice, calm, smooth, too smooth. Jack? I almost hung up, but the fury inside me wouldn't let me. You talked to them, didn't you? Silence on the line. Then, who? Don't play games, Patricia. Summit Valley. They knew everything about me. The divorce, my finances, even my credit score. That didn't come from a Google search. That came from you. Her sigh was soft, almost rehearsed. Jack, they approached me during the divorce. They said they could help. They showed me reports, projections. They looked professional, legitimate. Professional? I spat. They're vultures. They're trying to steal my home. Don't be dramatic, she said coldly. They're investors. They told me the land could be worth 3 times what you think if it was developed properly. They made it sound like a smart option. A smart option? I could feel my voice rising, echoing through the cabin. You gave them ammunition to destroy me, for money. Wasn't it enough you took everything else? Her tone sharpened. Don't you dare pin this on me. You were always stubborn, Jack. Always clinging to that cabin like it was some sacred thing. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed, you'd see it's just property. Her words sliced through me. Just property? That cabin was all I had left of myself, of my father, of the life I'd built before everything fell apart, and she'd reduced it to nothing more than a bargaining chip. I clenched the phone so hard I thought it might snap. Patricia, listen to me. You might have sold them your story, but you are not selling my life. You hear me? Not this time. She went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Jack, you can't win against them. Nobody does. Maybe it's better to cut your losses. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. I sat in the dark after that call, shaking. If Patricia was right, if nobody ever beat Summit Valley, then maybe I was doomed. But a small voice inside me whispered something else. Or maybe they've just never gone up against someone who has nothing left to lose. The next morning, Lydia came by again. She took one look at me and knew. You called her, didn't you? I nodded, jaw tight. She admitted it. They hooked her during the divorce, promised her money. She told them everything. Lydia sighed. Classic move. They find people in pain, dangle easy answers, and bleed them for information. She's not the first, won't be the last. I slammed my fist on the table. They used her. They used me. And now they think they can just take everything? But they don't know me, Lydia. They don't know what I'm capable of when I'm cornered. She raised her eyebrow. So what's your plan? I exhaled slowly, staring out the window at the mountains. For the first time in weeks, I felt something. Not fear or despair. Resolve. My plan, I said, voice steady, to make them regret ever picking me as their target. Because what Amanda, Dalton, and their boss didn't know was that I had found something. A secret buried in old land records. And once I revealed it, live in front of the whole community, their empire would come crashing down. For days, Lydia and I dug through records like detectives on a murder case. County archives, dusty survey maps, handwritten deeds from the 1800s. And then we found it. A mistake. No, more than a mistake. A bombshell. The original land survey showed my property boundaries stretched farther than anyone realized. Far enough, in fact, to include the very building Summit Valley had chosen for their regional headquarters. I remember staring at that old document, my hands shaking. You're telling me they built their office on my land? Lydia smirked. That's exactly what I'm telling you. And if this holds up, They're not just harassing you, Jack. They're trespassing. I couldn't help it. I laughed for the first time in weeks. A deep, bitter laugh that came from my gut. They've been trying to take my home while sitting in a building that technically belongs to me. The timing couldn't have been better. A day later, Amanda announced a community financial transparency live stream. According to her glossy email, Summit Valley wanted to reassure homeowners that their management was fair and honest. Translation: they thought they were untouchable. Libya looked at me across my kitchen table, her eyes gleaming. Jack, this is your moment. When the live stream began, I was there, front row, papers in hand, heart pounding like a drum. Amanda stood at the podium, her voice smooth as ever, speaking into the camera. Summit Valley operates with complete transparency. Every fee, every enforcement is to protect community value. The chat was filling with polite comments until I stood up. "Excuse me," I said loudly, holding the old survey maps high. "Before you talk about protecting the community, maybe you should explain why your office is built on land that doesn't even belong to you." Gasps rippled through the room. The camera swung toward me. Amanda's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. I walked forward, slapping the survey documents onto the table in front of her. "These are county records, verified. They show that my ground lease extends over this commercial block, which means your fancy office, your so-called headquarters, it's sitting on my property." For a moment, Amanda just blinked, like her brain had short-circuited. Then panic cracked through her polished mask. That's impossible," she shouted. "Our legal department verified everything." The chat exploded. "Wait, what? Is this true? Did they build on stolen land?" Amanda's face flushed red. She started grabbing at the papers, her voice rising. "You forged these. You're lying to get out of paying fines." I held firm, refusing to let go. "These aren't forgeries. County Surveyor Rodriguez himself confirmed them this morning. Want to deny it? Call him right now. I dare you." Amanda's breathing quickened. The room had gone silent, except for her ragged voice. "No, this can't be happening. I've worked for months. My daughter's medical bills." Her voice cracked, and then she completely lost control. "You don't understand," she screamed at me, slamming her fists on the table. "My entire job, my family's survival, it all depends on these targets. They promised me protection. They swore everything was legal." The camera caught every second of her breakdown. Her perfect corporate image crumbled in front of hundreds watching live. And then Linda Miller, the regional director herself, stormed into the room. Linda was everything Amanda wasn't. Calm, commanding, cold. She took the mic, her voice dripping with control. "Technical surveying discrepancies will be resolved through proper legal procedures. Nothing more to discuss." But the chat didn't buy it. "She's lying. This sounds like fraud. My HOA fees just disappeared into their pockets too." Dozens of viewers started sharing their own stories in real time. Complaints, harassment, suspicious fees. The dam had cracked. I leaned forward, my voice steady, clear. "Linda, tell them the truth. Summit Valley isn't protecting homes. You're running a scheme. You use fines and fake inspections to force people out, and now the whole valley knows it." Her eyes narrowed at me, sharp as a blade. "Careful, Mr. Harris. Accusations without proof can be costly." I raised the survey maps high for the camera. "This is the proof. You've built your empire on land that isn't yours, and now the entire county and everyone watching knows it." The chat went insane. Screenshots, recordings, clips, all spreading faster than Linda could spin her words. Amanda was shaking uncontrollably beside her, tears streaking her face. "They promised me protection. Linda swore the legal team checked everything." She snapped at her under her breath, forgetting the mic was still live. "Shut up, Susan. You're finished. You're nothing but expendable." The room erupted. People gasped. The chat blew up. The mask was gone. And at that moment, I knew it was over for them. The live stream had gone viral overnight. Clips of Amanda's breakdown and Linda's hot mic insult were everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, even the local news. By morning, Summit Valley wasn't just a company harassing homeowners. They were a scandal. And the county had no choice but to act. 2 days later, I sat in a county hearing room that smelled of stale coffee and cheap carpet. Long tables stretched across the front where officials sat with files stacked high. On the other side, Linda Miller, flanked by a team of lawyers in expensive suits. Amanda sat separately, eyes hollow, looking like she hadn't slept in days. The room buzzed with reporters, community members, even some of my neighbors who'd shown up in quiet support. Lydia sat beside me, her presence steady, grounding me in the chaos. Then Fire Marshal Williams banged his gavel. "This hearing is now in session. We are here to address allegations of illegal building occupancy, fraudulent property claims, and systematic harassment." The county surveyor was called first. He laid the old maps out for everyone to see, explaining point by point how my property boundaries stretched under Summit Valley's shiny headquarters. "These markers are original," he said firmly, "legally valid, which means Mr. Harris holds the ground lease." A murmur rippled through the room. Linda's lawyers objected, claimed the records were outdated, but the surveyor didn't budge. Outdated or not, they are law, and Summit Valley built on land they never had the right to use. I'll never forget Linda's face in that moment. Her polished, icy mask cracked. Just a flicker, but I saw it. Fear. Then came Amanda. When they asked her to testify, she hesitated. For a long moment, she just sat there, fingers twisting nervously in her lap. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, They promised me it was all legal. They told me to pressure homeowners, to fine them until they couldn't pay anymore. I did everything by the book, their book. But I can't keep lying." She broke down, sobbing. Linda knew. The board knew. There are emails, training manuals. I kept copies. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, reporters scribbling furiously. Linda whipped her head toward Amanda, eyes blazing. "You stupid—" But Amanda cut her off, slamming her fist on the table. "No! You used me! You used my desperation, my daughter's illness, to make me destroy families. And now you can answer for it." For a moment, it felt like time froze. Linda's empire, Amanda's mask, the whole corporate machine, it was all unraveling. And it was happening right in front of me. The county prosecutor stood then, voice steady, official. "Based on the testimony and evidence, we are opening a criminal investigation into Summit Valley Management, including charges of fraud, conspiracy, and illegal property seizure." Linda's lawyers jumped up, shouting objections, but it didn't matter. The sheriff's deputies were already moving forward. "Linda Miller," the prosecutor continued, "you are under investigation. Amanda Ruiz, you will be offered protection in exchange for cooperation." The gavel came down. Just like that, Summit Valley's reign was over. I walked out of that hearing into the bright Colorado sun, and for the first time in months, the weight lifted off my chest. Neighbors clapped me on the back, Reporters shouted questions, but I barely heard them. I just looked up at the sky, breathed deep, and thought, "Dad, the cabin's safe. They didn't win." Weeks later, Summit Valley was dissolved. Linda was sentenced to prison, 3 years plus restitution. Amanda served a shorter term, but later dedicated herself to helping victims of property scams. As for me, I kept the cabin. Not just the cabin, but the land under it, and the land under what used to be Summit Valley's headquarters. Talk about irony. But more than property, I gained something else: perspective. I'd gone from feeling like a man with nothing left to a man who proved that even giants can fall. That corporations, no matter how powerful, can crumble when ordinary people stand up and say, "Enough." And you know what? It wasn't just about me. After the scandal broke, dozens of families came forward. Families Summit Valley had bullied and harassed. My fight gave them a voice too. So here's what I learned. Sometimes the hardest battles come when you're already down, when you think you can't take another hit. But it's in those moments, when you've got nothing left to lose, that you can find a strength you never knew you had. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying I came out unscarred. But I came out standing. And I still have my cabin, my peace, my home.